Costa Rica. So I'll take you to see where they filmed that a little later. And on the left you can see one of the solar power plants there. We have 6 on Kauai, 5 of them are operational, 1 is under construction farther out on the west side. They actually burn the trees right below us here on the right. There's a beige building you might be able to make out there, Maggie. If you look carefully, you'll see what looks like a little bit of steam coming from it. That's actually smokeless burning of the trees. But they create electricity with it there, using the trees as a biomass fuel. The trees they burn are an invasive species, but they replant them to do it again next year, or the years after. On the left, we have 3 little towns, Lauai and Kalaheo. Kalaheo has a strong Portuguese heritage. When the Portuguese came to Hawaii, they brought with them a little tiny guitar called the cavaquinho. Of course, you guys know that today, of course, as the ukulele. When the Hawaiians first heard it, they thought it sounded like fleas dancing around. Twing, 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 twing. So they decided to name the instrument Dancing Fleas, and that's what ukulele means in Hawaiian. Isn't that cute?
That's behind us. We flew over some fields. Do you know what those farms are?
Those are the eucalyptus trees that they burn. See, what happens is, I don't know if you can make it down on David's side here. Can you see the trees that make an interlocking canopy below him?
Yes.
Those are called albizia trees, and if you leave them alone, they'll take over the entire island and interlock so tightly that it blocks all the sunlight and kills almost 90% of all the vegetation underneath, all the indigenous plant life. So they decided to get rid of it, cut it down, burn it. Well, then they said, you know what we do? Rather than just letting it grow back, because it grows about 20 feet a year, we'll just replant the area that it grows in with eucalyptus trees. So they brought a hybrid eucalyptus tree, and that's what they're burning. So then they just plant it intentionally in different spots to prevent the tree from growing in certain areas. Now, the one that looks like broccoli below you there, the albizia tree, also has a name, the widowmaker. The branches break off really easy, and it's 100 feet tall. So if somebody's underneath it, that turns out to be a bad news. But I love these trees because they've been here ever since I've been coming to Kauai as a kid. I'm going to take you down in Jurassic Park here, so I'm going to put the Jurassic Park theme song on. Take a look at this. Gotta do that too, right? You can see this is just the awesome area here. There's an aqueduct here from the 1800s. You can see the concrete wall there. They're trying to clear it out, so they brought a backhoe in here, but normally we don't really consider there being a trail in here. There's a walking trail. And so when they filmed Jurassic Park in here, they bought a van to bring the equipment in to build the helipad. The wheelbase was too wide, So they took the wheels off and cut the axle, welded it back together, raised the van up and put the wheels underneath, and now they had a real small gauge. And they were able to drive up the stream. Now this land is owned by the Robinson family. They have about 96,000 acres of land across the entire state of Hawaii. If you look over on the left here on the ridge, you can actually see their homes there. They have about 4 little houses right up on the ridge there. Originally, in 1864, King Kamehameha sold them the island of Ni'ihau. That's the westernmost island to the state here. And it has about 50 people living on it today. Could you imagine living on an island with 50 people? You'd be like, well, I think I'm going to marry you. You know, imagine half of them are the wrong gender. Half of those then are probably the wrong age. And then half of those you probably say, well, you know, I like you, but I don't think I want to marry you. So you're left with about 6 people to pick from, and it ends up pretty easy. But on a serious note, you could imagine if you actually lived on the island there, you'd want to get married, fall in love. So let's say you go to Ohio, Pennsylvania, you meet somebody who's not Hawaiian, you fall in love. You can no longer live on the island anymore. Over time, it's just going to go down and down. So now we're down to about 50 people. Now there's other factors that brings the population down as well. The Robbins family owns the island. They're responsible for the economy on the island. They said, we're downsizing. There's 200 people living on the island. They say, we're going to be downsizing. There won't be a lot of work, but you're welcome to stay here. Well, how can I say that if I don't have a job? So people leave for that reason too. In 1870, Eliza Sinclair would build a home here then on Kauai. It's right below us here on the right. You can look below you, Maggie, and see it there. Today, nobody lives there. But that house was built in 1870. The family cemetery is in the trees there, so they don't want to leave it. So once a year, they'll cut all the bushes away from the house. On the left is where Captain Cook landed in 1778. He accidentally discovered the islands when he was trying to find a passage above Canada. You say, what? He left England, sailed around India, went past Australia, and he'd been there twice before. This was his third time sailing around the world. So as he's looking towards Canada, sailing north, he sees 2 islands on the horizon. He's like, what is that? And it turns out, of course, to be Oahu and Kauai. Kauai is about 1,000 feet taller, so he decides to land here thinking there'd be more resources on a taller island. You can see right down below us here, this is where the electric fence was in Jurassic Park when little Timmy got zapped when they brought the power. It's pretty. You can see the valley up on the right belongs to the Robinson. It goes all the way down to the shoreline there. Look at these mountains in here. Now because Hawaii is so isolated in the Pacific here, we don't have a lot of naturally occurring wildlife here. When the first Polynesians arrived, there was only 2 mammals, monk seals and hoary bats. So they brought with them dogs, pigs, and chickens. Any of you seen any chickens on Kauai yet?
Yeah.
Right? They're all over the place. You might be excited to know, Maggie, we have about 420,000 chickens on the island. There's only 70,000 people. That's about 6 chickens per person. If you guys clear the security check at the airport on your way home and you decide, you know what, we should have brought some chickens, let me know. Give me a call. I'll mail you some of mine. But look at this here. This is the end of the Robinson land. This is their boundary line right here.